I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on the Spotlight Network, we're diving into a hilarious and heartwarming children's adventure called The Adventures of Rick and Jack. It's written by a terrific author. His name is Rick Randall. This imaginative tale follows Dr. Rick and Jack as they ditch their routines for a carefree life in Hawaii, only to discover paradise isn't all that it's cracked up to be. Packed with humor, colorful scenes, and a surprise ending, this story reminds young readers that sometimes the best place to be is home. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight, and we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing book. The links are below this interview. And be sure to download the Spotlight Network TV app streaming on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV. Rick, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you for the opportunity. This is a cool story.
It is a cool story that you've written. And is it based a little bit? There's the book right there. And we're going to put it up as well.
Sure.
Is it based a little bit on your own experiences, your own life? You're Rick, he's Rick. Tell us a little bit about the similarities.
This is great. So I'm a chiropractor, and so I routinely had younger people that would come into my office, and we adjusted a lot of people once a month. And so Jack was one of those people, and he'd come in, and I always ask young kids, I'd say, what'd you do today? And then, well, I went to school. And then you go, well, what'd you learn today? And then the younger kids be like, oh, it was just review. And then the other older kids, as they got a little older, would be like, God, I didn't learn nothing. And I said, well, why do you go? And they say, well, my parents make me go. Well, Jack came in one day and he says, I just really don't like going to school. And I'd just gotten back from a trip to Hawaii, and it was the first day back. And, when you get back, you're busy. There's people everywhere. And Jack walks in, and I said, Jack, sometimes I don't really like going to work. What do you think we ought to do? And so Jack and I started discussing. Once a month he'd come in, we discuss, let's go to Hawaii and become beach bums. And so then as the story progresses, you find out Jack doesn't like waking up early, and he doesn't like brushing his teeth, and his mom hugs him good morning, and she's got breakfast in the kitchen, and he doesn't want to take a shower and doesn't want to use soap and didn't really want to go to school. And you're like, Jack, let's go to Hawaii, and we don't have to go to work, and you don't have to go to school. We don't have to do that anymore. So then this is funny. So I tell him this story, and we keep embellishing this story. And then as time went on, I started to write down the story, and it came to me. I said, let's write this story, Jack. And we turned it in. So do I call you Logan or Mr. Crawford, or how do I do it?
Absolutely.
So Logan, I wrote the story. And so we sneak out in the middle of the night. I pick him up. I've got a station wagon. It's a classic. I'm a little vintage guy, so I had the old side wood paneled station wagon. I said, Jack, that's the getaway mobile. And we take off. I said, I've got enough money to fly, and we land in Hawaii. And so Jack doesn't know if he's asleep or still dreaming, but he wakes up, gets to the window, away we go. And so then the adventure begins. And so the kind of cool part about it is at the beginning of the story, we're collecting really cool coral and a few pieces of lava rock. So that was the byline through the story. And so then anyway, so the first day, it's a blast, but we're eating out of dumpsters. We're sleeping on lava rock and sand. And so Jack didn't like school, but along the way, he's learning he's realizing what he learned in school about the Hawaiian volcanoes and the lava rock. And so suddenly school is becoming more and more important, but now we're not eating his mom's kitchen pancakes and eggs. We're eating dumpster snacks. And then we talk about dumpster snacks, but now we don't have to brush our teeth. And now you start thinking about the green fuzzy stuff. And there's showers on every beach in Hawaii, but you don't have to do it anymore. There's no soap, there's no hot water. And after a couple of days, he's thinking, maybe it wasn't so bad at home. So I'm snoring on the beach. He's waking up to me snoring, and then we're eating breakfast out of dumpster, whatever. And so suddenly he's like, this isn't so good after all. And but he says, that's okay. I want to be a beach bum. So he tried it out. Next thing you know, he wakes up again, and his mom's saying, good morning, Jack. Time to get up. And he's like, wow, where'd Dr. Rick go? And so he got up, hugged his mom so tight, couldn't wait to go brush his teeth. We took a hot shower, soap, ate a bunch of breakfast, got on the bus, couldn't wait to go to school. So then the best part of the story is this: he gets done with school, and he comes into Dr. Rick's office one more time. And I said, what's up, Jack? When we going to Hawaii? And he's like, I kind of thought we already went. And so he didn't know if it was a dream or real. And so then he gets his adjustment. I don't say anything about the experience. And so I leave the room, way to go, Jack. But then when he goes back to the corner and puts his shoes on and grabs his book bag, there's some really cool coral and a few pieces of lava rock.
Cool.
So he doesn't, you're like,
Did he or
So,
didn't he? Yeah,
yeah. And
absolutely.
so,
That's very cool.
so it's just a neat story. But the truth is, it's about, you don't appreciate what you have until it goes missing, and then you go from there.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
okay, can I talk a little more about another book I just published?
Sure, sure. Well, let me ask you about this. So let's get
Go
into
ahead.
the other book a little
Okay.
bit.
Okay.
So I think a lot of kids really don't realize how good they have it until it's gone. I mean, I don't think we realized our days were so blessed as they are.
Yes.
When mom was cooking for us, and all our responsibility was to go to school till 3 o'clock or 2:30, and then have the rest of the day off. Kids do have it blessed. Did you share the story with the real Jack eventually, or were you sharing it with him as you went along? Tell us a little bit about how that collaboration went.
Yeah, so we talked, and I said, Jack, I'm going to publish the book, and so we've continued. Now he's going to be 20, so he was only 8 years old at the time, and so that was we talked about it for a couple of years, then published it, and that was 2020, and so then we republished it in 2025. But yeah, so now I have the Adventures of Rick and Jack 2. It's not complete yet, but we continued the story. So last year was just really cool. I went to his graduation party, and the senior that year, and I said, Jack, I said, I'll let you know. My goal, my goal was to pay for his college with my book. I said, not yet, Jack, not yet. But anyway, so that he's a good young man. He's still trying to figure out where he's going to go, but we have another sequel to the story coming soon, I hope.
Where do you see the sequel going?
Well, it's to appreciate the aloha and what Hawaii means. And so we start the story where actually he's a senior in high school, and school is important, and he did really well, and I said, now what are you going to do, Jack? So geology, well, we went to Hawaii, so we tied that in with geology and what happens there, and his dentist up the street, I said, you got to talk to him, and I said, there's chiropractic. I said, but I like that geology idea, let's go back to Hawaii. And he goes, go back to Hawaii, did we ever go the first time? You're like, well, yeah, maybe not. So then it was just talking about what he's going to do going forward. But the point of that story would be to go to Hawaii. Have you been to Hawaii,
I
Mr.
have.
Crawford?
It's gorgeous. It really is like paradise.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So the Aloha Festival,
Hmm.
it's usually in early September, and it's in Waikiki Beach. And when you hear the music, the most incredible part about Hawaii is the aloha energy.
Hmm.
So I have a registered trademark past the aloha, past the love, and past the positive. But that energy in Hawaii, there's nothing like it, or at least in my experience. I haven't been around the world completely yet, but Hawaii is just this aloha energy. So that would be the point of the next story, is to get to know what aloha really means and how that might impact your life. And so that's kind of where that's going to go.
That sounds wonderful. Have you envisioned this Rick and Jack book series as perhaps a TV series or a series of films? Tell us about what your multimedia dreams are.
That was interesting. I did have an interview with a potential a script writer, movie maker,
Mhm.
and I thought, wow, and at that point I hadn't visualized to that point. I mean, I hadn't got to that point in my thought process. It was just, how do I sell some books? But wouldn't that be a neat story?
Yeah,
The illustrations in the book, I don't know if you got a chance to actually go
I
through the
did.
book, but yeah, the illustrations, they were well done, and I think it's kind of neat. So to turn that into a little a 30-minute, I don't know if it's going to be Charles Schultz or nothing, but wouldn't that be neat?
I think it'd
So
be cool. Yeah, it's a great story. Going from the ho-hum life in suburbia, if you will, to the beautiful shores of Hawaii. I think it'd be a cool contrast. And then, of course, we would drive home the point that sometimes your ho-hum life in suburbia is not as bad as we think it is. You were mentioning another book. Tell us about the other book you wanted to talk about.
so this is really exciting. So it's going along that note. So I wrote, it's called Road Trip.
Hmm. I see it
So
there.
this is likely to succeed A to Z. And so this is a follow-up. We started years ago with this book. This was a
Hmm.
Good Words, Cool Coloring book.
Yep.
Okay, so the concept with even with Rick and Jack, Rick and Jack was just a really neat illustrated story, and it was kind of simplified. But here's the whole point: is that I used to do exit interviews for seniors
Hmm.
in the high school, and so they put together a book. And at the end of, I did it for 9 years. And the last year, I thought something's missing, and so I went back to our cool coloring book. And the concept of the coloring book was this: is that the average adult vocabulary has about 1,500 words in it on a daily basis. So your bag of daily words is 1,500 words. That's not a lot of words. So the concept was is that if you only have 1,500 words in the bag, you should only put good words in the bag, right?
Mm.
So if and so that those are the words. That is the bag of words. That is what you live from. So the coloring book was way back when, and the idea was to get little 0 to 3 year old kids getting these 31 words that we had: persistence and honesty and faith and love, and so we had 31 words, and it was a word for the day. We had an interesting concept for a game with bags, and I got more story to that, but I want to get the road trip. So then I took that story, and we took Good Words coloring book, and it grew up in the road trip. And I left that senior interview, and I said, there's an old saying that goes like this: is that I'd love to go back if I only knew then what I know now. So I thought, I'm going to write this book. And so back in 2009, the sky was falling, the world was coming to an end, finance was tough. And I said, man, we have got to be more positive. We need to think positive and be more positive, pass it on. So then I came up with my slogan, Pass the Positive. So Pass the Positive was my slogan. And I just said, hey, it's all about how you think. And so then I wrote Road Trip. And so the concept in the book, and it starts like this, is that my good buddy from high school and then eventually in chiropractic school, he says, I can sum up life in one word. And I says, what one word, what would that be? And he says, it'd be vocabulary. I said, sounds like more than one word. Well, vocabulary is more than one word. And he said, life is about the words that you know. So that just kind of supported our concept. And then we thought, if you can only have good words in the bag, you live from good words. And the concept there is that your thoughts, your emotions, and your behavior are because of the words that you know. So they say on average, we have about 64,000 thoughts a day. I don't know who counted all those, and they say that a lot of them are repeat thoughts from the day before. And you think, well, that doesn't really make much sense to me. But the idea here is that if you have a thought pop in, so we can't control them, but we can edit them. But if you have good words in your bag, when a thought pops in, if it feels good, you keep the thought. If it doesn't feel so good, you rewind and you write and you replay. So the key with that is that you replay with better words. So your thoughts are determined by the words that you know. Your emotions. If I say stressed out or pumped up, you go, both could apply to the same situation or circumstance. So what do you choose to live by? It drives me crazy. And then they go, I know you're going to kill it. You go, I'm not going to kill it. We're going to do really, really well. Or we got slammed at work today. You go, what do you mean you got slammed? You just made more money than you made in the last 12 days. I mean, this is good stuff, so then the same with behavior. So the story there is, Mr. Crawford, if you could be honest, then that would be way better right now. And you go, I don't know what honesty means. So it's hard to be that behavior, right? Or be responsible. If you don't know what the word means, it's hard to be that behavior. So you want a funny story?
Sure.
So Native Americans, they did not stutter because they didn't have a word for stuttering. Okay, so that was kind of a premise that we kind of were going on. It's like, hey, if you don't have the word, you can't exhibit the behavior.
Right.
Well, it's kind of a neat idea, So consequently, if you do have the word, then you're more likely to exhibit the behavior, right? So I don't remember the Native American's name. He was a famous Indian chief and he stuttered. And I thought, I kind of mess with our story, but anyway, so then, and what I did was I went to the dictionary after that exit interview, and I went through A to Z on a concise dictionary, and I picked out positive words. And so then I chose 3 to 4 to 5 words of positive words for A, positive words for B, C, D, E, F, and G. I didn't get 5 words for X, but nonetheless, I did get 1, so I thought I was good there. Okay, then what was kind of neat is that I wrote inspiration, motivation, just kind of I wrote the definition of the word, and then I wrote what it meant to me. And then I wrote kind of a power statement, in bold. And then, oh my gosh, Logan, I got goofy and I like writing poems. And I started writing a poem for every word. So it kind of looks, I don't know if you can see this, but there's the word, the definition, the power statement, and then I wrote a kind of a cool poem for each word. So the book, oh my goodness. And some of the poems, well, poems are life experience stuff, too. Yep. And then some are just kind of poems that came out of whatever. And so now you kind of got, and that enforces the word. And it's a great book. And then it was a patient of mine, Tanya. We sat for a couple of weeks, and I said, Tanya, we got to figure out the cover. And she's an artist, and she put the picture that we got this off of, kind of was the picture that she has a relative that works for Founders Brewing, and they have an all-day IPA, and they have a cool look of a Wagoneer going through the woods with the canoe on top, And I said, oh my goodness. I said, that's kind of the look we want. So that's when we came up with the 58 pickup truck and the cobblestone. And so I'm excited about the cover as much.
The cover is beautiful. The premise is beautiful. It's so true. I mean, words can be either empowering or disempowering. And those are the words usually given to us by our first caregivers, our parents. So they can tell us that we're smart, we're talented, we're beautiful, or they can tell us that you're lazy, you're no good, or you're ugly.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So it is so important that the words that we have are important and are used properly. And everything can be framed one way or another. I mean, it's a whole glass is half empty or half full. It's the same glass. It's the way you look at it, right?
So I was in a meeting. I'll tell a quick story. I was in a meeting.
We got lots of time.
It was so I went to Charlevoix and we started a bridge drop. So there's the ball drop, the cherry drop. Well, Charlevoix has this iconic bridge that stops traffic in the middle of summer. It goes up, it goes down, and it's every 30 minutes. So Charlevoix gets very busy in the summer, and it's a beautiful town, and we were so fortunate to land there. And so this bridge is an issue. Well, not an issue to me so much because I'm just a little south, so I kind of escaped the traffic issue. But the point is we get towards New Year's, and I said, I'm talking to the Charlevoix Visitors Bureau lady, and I said, what are you going to do for New Year's? And she said, same old thing, probably, maybe go to eat, but go home and go to bed early. I said, we ought to do something different. And I said, they have the ball drop in Charlevoix, or in New York City, and in Traverse City, where we're just north of, they have the cherry drop. They raise a lot of cherries. I said, we ought to have a bridge drop. And so, oh my gosh, Logan, I started promoting. I got to do the first Friday business breakfast meetings for the chamber. So I was the host. So in June, I said, hey, we ought to do something for New Year's. And so we ought to have a bridge drop. Well, people kind of started thinking about it. Well, then another month goes by and I'm about ready to talk about it again. And the chamber president and the chamber chairman, they said, we just don't think this year is the year. And I thought, oh God, you shouldn't have said that. So now I'm thinking we should. So I didn't understand why not. And oh my gosh. So before long, next thing we're talking about is what are we going to do? We had a police car, we had a fire truck, we had a parade, we had a 21 gun salute. We had people marching back and forth it went up, went down, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Anyway, so that was the New Year's Eve bridge drop. So I thought, okay, if you want to get more excited about your life, if you want your life to be more exciting, you have to get more excited about your life. And I said, you have to do those types of things that keep your life exciting. I talk about you don't stop doing things because you get old. You get old because you stop doing things. And so the other thing is that it's one thing when you die after your life has been lived and you're all used up, but it's sad when you die before your life has actually been used up and you think it's all here. And so that's what I did with the book was I pretty much wrote all that in there in Road Trip. With that in mind, is just, again, if I could share, I'm 66. So I thought, you learn a few things after a decade or two, takes a minute. And I thought, if I could just give you this information beforehand, before you get to 16 or 18 or 20 or 27, and have this as your manual, that'd be a good book. And so that's what it is.
Sounds like a great book. And like you said, your words are either empowering or disempowering. What you think is what you are. What you believe is what you achieve. I'm a big believer and proponent of positive thinking, and negative words can just hold us back. People always fear, what if everything goes wrong? My counter to that is, what if everything goes right? And I think your book is along those lines. Why is it called Road Trip? That's the part I haven't gotten yet.
Okay, the road trips, the idea is your life is a road trip, right?
Hmm.
So we're all on a road trip, and then it's called the Good Words Book for Success, Likely to Succeed A to Z. But it's all about the road trip of life, and so
Wonderful.
and hopefully we get to experience several. I love road trips. We drove out to California this year. Oh my goodness, our country is so cool. The roads, the gas station, everything you need from Michigan to California. And then this is a great story too. We got to ski in Lake Tahoe, and Lake Tahoe is just a beautiful lake. So, okay, so Heavenly is named appropriately. You're up at the top looking out over. Do you ski, Logan?
I do not know. That would be a very comic sight if I was skiing.
Yeah, kind of like me playing golf. So,
Exactly.
oh, beautiful. You're up top about 8,000 feet. So we got to ski in the morning, and it was blue skies and white snow. And then we got to go swim in the afternoon, a little chilly,
Wow.
but got to swim. I thought that's a pretty good day.
Yeah,
But
exactly. To have four seasons in one day is great. How did you get out across country? Did you do Route 66 or did you take another way?
okay, we went the south route. So we went Michigan down to St. Louis, Oklahoma. You go through Arizona, New Mexico, the northern part of Texas. And that was a pretty cool ride. And then through the Grand Canyon. And again, our country's big. And then this year we did Highway 80.
Yeah.
So went east and west on 80. And last year went to Breckenridge. My friend has a place in Breckenridge, but I didn't start snow skiing until I was 30, 31
Wow.
or 32. And I'm so glad I did, except for the second night out, I kind of broke my shoulder. I was a little too excited. But I was going to continue to tell you that story about the bridge drop just real quick.
Sure.
Was that we're in the meeting and it's a success. It was a success. So it's an after meeting. We came up with enough money to do it. And one of the ladies said, you're pretty optimistic, but I think you might be not a realist and you're living in a spacesuit. And so I thought, I'll have to think about that. So I went home and I wrote just what we were talking about. The words are either positive or negative. And I just wrote, it's the battery theory with two poles. And so I just light on, light off, half empty, half full. You just wrote all the positive side and the negative side.
Right.
And I said, other than that, I don't know if it feels better or not, but I think I prefer living in my spacesuit. But then I kind of wrote a cool poem about that too, So
That's funny.
yeah,
Has the
it's just
bridge drop become an annual tradition now?
yeah, I think it did 10 years last year. So we had
Wow.
a 10-year run going. And now this is my friend Dan Barron. He does the Venetian Festival, which is a 1 week festival in Charlevoix. Fireworks are amazing. Well, he loves fireworks. So now the Charlevoix Bridge Drop has fireworks at 9 o'clock. Then the bridge goes up and goes down. It has fireworks again at midnight. So it's kind of a neat part of it.
Yeah.
But now you know how things come a little bit and they get energized and then they kind of fade a little bit because
Mhm.
it's a small town. You only have so many people and you need volunteers, And so sometimes you got to get a little lean on the neighborhood to say, hey, we just need you to do this. But
Yeah.
they usually have it's a snowman building contest. If we have snow, they have a hot chocolate contest to go with it, And so there's
Cool.
things through the day. The movie theater has a free movie, and then the restaurants do things through the night, and then you wait for the fireworks. But street
That's
buskers and
terrific.
different things. But there again goes back to if you want your life to be more exciting,
Yeah.
you kind of got to enjoy living your life. So
Yeah.
that's what road trip's all about. I think I got 123 words. I think there's 23,000 words in there.
Hmm.
Or Logan, I was sitting there and I had a deadline and I was getting closer and I kept kind of putting it off and I thought you got to sit down and write. And I don't know where all those poems came from, but man, they just, you know, and I try not to be too, you know, we and thee and they and the. And I mean, just, you know,
Mhm.
you know, little 3-letter words that you rhyme and you want a little more meaning to it.
Right.
So I kind of watched that and I didn't want to overuse the words that I used to rhyme, but I think it turned out to be just a neat book. And it's a good book for younger people, anybody anyways, but younger people to kind of get that manual for kind of the road trip that they're taking starting now.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome. Is your chiropractic practice, does it deal with a lot of children? Is it for adults and children? Tell us a little bit about that.
I was very fortunate. My dad was a chiropractor,
Hmm.
so I started with chiropractic kid, and I thought that that's all dads did that, you know.
Hmm.
So I was 9 years of age, and Carrie and Craig, their two brothers, and they're waiting for me to come outside. And I finally get outside, and they said, "What took you so long?" I said, "I was getting my neck adjusted. My dad, you know, he does chiropractic. It's a chiropractic thing." He says, they said, "Look, what's that?" I said, what do you mean, what's that? I go, "Doesn't your dad do that? That's what dads do, right?" He goes, "No, our dad doesn't do that." I said, "Just a minute, I got to go back inside." So I went back inside and I asked my dad. I said, "Dad, what is that?" He goes, "That's what I do, you know." And so that was the beginning.
Hmm. So that's how you got acquainted with
Anyway,
not
so
only your
fortunately,
dad and
I
his
joined
profession,
chiropractic and
but
became a
became more
chiropractor.
aware of it, right?
Oh my goodness, you get to realize the benefits beyond just a neck ache or a low back pain, you know.
Yeah.
And so we had a family of healthy kids, and when we weren't so healthy, we went to. Mom was a nurse, but dad was a chiropractor. And
Hmm.
Logan, you'd get a cold, you get a sore throat, you get sinus, you get adjusted in your neck a couple times in a 12-hour period. It was amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So I grew up with that, but then I became a chiropractor. I was able to join my dad's practice. And so then I got to work with him. Well, he'd been there for 28 years. So after 28 years, he was telling people a little bit once a month, just once a month tune-ups, you know. So I kind of got ingrained in that. And he had so many people that came in once a month. And the best part of that story is that they'd come in and the best line was Pete. Pete says, "Feels so good. Don't know why I'm here. Just keep me that way." And so you're like, "All right, Pete, see you next month." And then it wasn't an acute based practice. It was people were healthy, wanted to stay healthy.
Yeah.
That's a low stress practice. You get to know your patients really well. Well, next thing you know, you got little kids, and then you're treating the little kids, and next thing you know, you're treating the little kids, and we had 4 and 5 generation families, you know, and so you just saw the benefit. The benefit to little people is amazing. So you just promote that, and again, it's no different than dentistry, so to speak. Is that if you want these choppers to last a lifetime, it's kind of like your spinal system. So as a chiropractor, I just call myself a mechanic. You're just a frame guy. So you're just so you know when you stand, both feet hit the ground at the same time. Your weight should be evenly distributed. If that's true, then your body's under minimal mechanical distress. And the part that a lot of people don't realize about chiropractic is the neurology, the neurological component. So in your body, you have cardiovascular system, that's
Mhm.
your heart and your arteries. You have your cardiorespiratory system, that's your heart and your lungs. You have your gastrointestinal system, your stomach and your intestines, genital urinary. You have all these systems.
Mhm.
So your spinal column is your neuromusculoskeletal system. So neuro is nerves, musculo is muscle, skeletal is frame, and then of course the system. So they all work together. So neuro is your electrical system. So your neurology, your nervous system, it runs inside the spinal column. And so your spinal column is the central. But if you're off in the knee, or if you're off in the hip, or if you're off in the lower back, your body gets a little out of balance. So it's a little like train going down a track with one of the cars a little off the track. It still
Yeah.
might go down the track. It's just not as easy as it should. Eventually that causes irritation, inflammation, and pain. That's when we get to see people. All the wheels in the bus aren't going around. So, but here's the benefit is that when I adjust you wherever I choose to, and I go through a really good system of assessing you every time. So I
Mhm.
check you every time. And so I know if your foot's off, I know if your knee's off, your ankle, your hips, and I go through and we make corrections with an instrument. And then I follow up with my hands-on therapy so that when I physically manually manipulate your spine, you get a neurological change.
Mhm.
So it's a little like a dimmer switch on a light bulb. So these nerves go places. So all these nerves are going places. So if those nerves have a little pressure because the bone is shifted, the muscles are tight, the frame's not in the best alignment, then that can impact that nerve. Well, if that nerve goes to your heart or goes to your bicep or goes to your face or goes wherever, it controls that function. So it's a little like having a 100-watt light bulb with a dimmer switch, and I only get 60 watts of light. So you can still function neurologically, but not as well. Eventually that causes some sort of compromise to something. And that's what leads to dis-ease, not necessarily disease, but dis-ease. Eventually that leads to usually a symptom. So when we change that, that's the cool thing. I get a baby that comes in, she's only 8 months old. Her head is turned, it won't come back. She's pale, she's not pooping. You think, chiropractor fix that? I adjust her one time, Logan. She comes in a second time, her face is red. She's pooping again. And you go, wow, okay, good. See her, I think the second time, after the second time, it was amazing. Here's this new person, and you're kind of done with that. You're okay, she's good now, but you change things like that. My sister, she says, Sydney, your daughter was 3 weeks old, wasn't pooping, which is a common issue with little people. And she brought her in, and so I adjusted Sydney like I do. She's 3 weeks old. And I adjusted her, and Marcia calls me back later in the evening, and she says, Sydney's better. She goes, she's in the laundry tub. She's a mess, just amazing what changes. You think, sorry, kind of. But
well, that's great. Your patients are lucky to have you, and the next generation of readers are lucky to have you as well. We've been talking about a lot today with Dr. Rick, focusing primarily on his amazing book. It is called The Adventures of Rick and Jack. It's a story that's big on laughs, heart, and a powerful reminder that home is where the magic truly is. Those links to all of the books that we discussed today are below this interview. Dr. Rick, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Mr. Crawford, this was special. And you were as enjoyable. I you don't know what to anticipate. And this is the first time I've ever done this, but I understand why you have the credibility and the credentials that you do. You're an impressive young man.
Well, I appreciate that, sir, and right back at you. And congratulations on your fine work on these books. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.